Hello, beautiful, and welcome to Solace, where we're going to really dive into the love that is at the heart of your struggles. So, welcome if you are here live or if you are watching the replay, welcome. I am so grateful that you are in this space with me. And before we really dive into it, I just want to take a little moment to invite you to ground into your body. Take a deep breath, place your hand on your heart. Our hands are extensions of our heart. So whenever we place our hand on our heart, we're creating this really beautiful energy loop of giving and receiving love to ourselves, which is really beautiful. So just take a little breath here and just letting yourself be fully in the moment. Let go of anything that's happened today, let go of anything that's to come. Be here, be present, and you can keep breathing. If you want to keep your eyes closed, hand on heart breathing through this entire transmission, you are so welcome to. Or you can just make yourself comfortable now. So a really quick introduction for those of you who don't know me, or who don't know me very well. My name is Rachel White, like you have likely seen already. I am a Gene Keys guide, an author, speaker, coach. I host the podcast Depths of Creation, and I've really been immersed into the Gene Keys transmission for around 2.5 years now, going very, very deeply into it for the last almost 12 months now. I have so many like notes and contemplations and space for the Gene Keys in my life now. I'm absolutely in love and devoted to this transmission in many ways. And for the last around 6 years, I've also been really immersed in the world of feminine energy, polarity, spirituality, creativity, embodiment. And even before that, in my professional life, I was really into like personality profiling and discovering differences between people and seeing how that played out in terms of my understanding of myself, but also my understanding of others. And I feel like all of those many facets of the many things I've been involved in, I have, line 3 in my purpose. I've been involved in many, many different things, many different modalities and experiences. All like so many different facets of those experiences have built such a beautiful foundation for me to really explore the full depth of what I have experienced through the Gene Keys. And if you're not following me already, you can find me at by Rachel White on Instagram, TikTok, all the places. That is my username. So you can come hang out with me anywhere. And I always love to hear from you. So if you want to, share your insights from this and tag me in it, like in your story or a post, I would definitely thank you so much for sharing it and being here, and reshare it and all of that. Or you can message me privately as well. So happy for all of you here that I know already, and for all the new faces. I'm so happy to meet you. Definitely introduce yourself to me. So what we're going to cover here is we're going to explore the SQ sphere within the Gene Keys. We're going to explore the essence and the meaning of love and the essence of your struggles and suffering in the world as well. And we're going to end with a really beautiful guided meditation that is really going to take you into your heart and into the essence of love. So definitely stay for the meditation, or come back to it later if you're not in a space to meditate, however you're listening to this. And so for this session and this transmission today, I'm not going to go into the foundation or like the basic definitions and all of that when it comes to the Gene Keys around like what they are and where they come from. I do have a separate masterclass that goes into like the full depth and detail of all the foundations relating to the Gene Keys. So if you would like that, if you're a little newer to the Gene Keys, or you just want a different perspective to the foundation of the Gene Keys, send me a message separately, and I will send you the link to that masterclass. And while you're listening, especially if you're new, but even if you're not, like if there are any terms I use, anything I say that kind of sparks your curiosity and you want to know more about, and I maybe don't go into like the full definition of what I'm talking about today, just like note it down. And again, like you can reach out to me later. I'll send you some voice messages explaining, or just also trust that you don't need to mentally understand everything that I'm talking about. Again, especially if you're new to the Gene Keys, just trust that like your heart and your body is going to receive this transmission beyond what you logically understand. So just like let yourself receive without your mind getting in the way. And that's not to say anything I share is going to be so like wildly technical or groundbreaking or anything like that. Like I think a lot of it is like coming back to really like simple concepts that we can understand. It's just more like the gene key terminology. If there's anything that comes up, you can let me know later and I will explain it to you. So before we get into Solace, I just do want to take one little moment to make an acknowledgement. And this acknowledgement is to really honor the source material of the Gene Keys and to really honor Richard Rudd, the founder, the first student, as I've seen him call himself, of the Gene Keys, and also honoring all that came before him that lay the foundation for his work and for this transmission to be fully manifested into the world. I really honor, like deeply honor the source material and how it has been shared and how accessible it is and how much it activates our own depth and wisdom, but also how much like information it also gives. And what I'm going to share in this transmission here with you is really a beautiful tapestry of the transmission of the Gene Keys with my own wisdom that has been activated through the Gene Keys, as well as my channel thoughts and things that have come from my previous work and all of that as well. So I really want to honor where like some of the source material is coming from that I'm going to be talking about. And one final moment to just acknowledge the traditional custodians of country where I sit today and throughout Australia. I honor and acknowledge our traditional custodians' connection to the land, sea, and community here in Australia. And I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait people today. So let's get into solace. The definition of solace is comfort or consolation in a time of distress or sadness. And when I think of the word solace, I just like have this visual of like this warm, feminine, like loving hug. And it's like the hug or like the embrace of love within our times of distress or sadness, or in those emotions that feel a little heavier in our body. And we can take solace in our love, in our suffering, in our life. We can comfort ourselves like in the name of love and in the name of life itself in these times that we feel like we are really struggling or we're really sad. And we can embrace that as a really beautiful part of life while also acknowledging like the love that is coming through in those moments and the love that those moments entice within us, the love we give to ourselves and the love we give to others as well in this really beautiful solace. So I love this word. And this word just came really beautifully into my mind when I was thinking about like, I haven't done a transmission like this in a little while. And I was thinking I really wanted to do one. I knew I wanted it to relate to the SQ sphere, to heart and to love. And then the word solace dropped in. And I was like, yes, that is beautiful. And in many parts of the Gene Keys transmission, it keeps returning like to this core point that within every shadow there is a gift. Within all of our struggles there is gold, there is magic, there is creative life force, there is love at the heart of our struggles. And the essence of all in this world is love. So all of our struggles must originate from love, even if they have become distorted or we have adopted some kind of distorted or perverted view. The essence of everything is love. So everything must return to love at some point, even if we are at a stage in the journey where it doesn't feel like love in any moment. There is always love at the core, and there is always love at the essence. And it's your shadows, your struggles, your suffering, and your challenges. All of that is here to wake you up, to provoke you to experience more of your depth, to stretch you, to stretch your heart open, to expand you, and to invite you to rise up and root down. All is sacred in this world and all is love in this world. So love must be at the heart of all of our struggles, and all of our struggles and shadows and challenges is all part of our story. And our story, the core of all of our story, is returning home to love, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. But in the Gene Keys, Richard Rudd has said that the cities are just 64 words for love. And they all give these different, slightly different like flavors and nuance to love. And then as they, fracture down into the manifestation of gifts in the world, they have different expressions of love, but they all come from the source of love, from the same universal source that fractured out into the 64 Gene Keys. And we bring many different fractals of love into the world and in through our lives, through our own individual genetic makeup, physically and holographically. And there is love wanting to shine through all of our shadows. And there's a visual that I want to share with you. And this is what I think of when I think about like love wanting to shine through us and love wanting to shine through in the world. And this only dawned on me like this morning, like to mention this visual that I have. And this is something that really came through me very strongly when I wrote my first book, Gentle Glow, in 2019. And this was like a full year before, or almost a year before, I discovered the Gene Keys, that I had this visual. And I think it relates to this, everything I'm saying here perfectly. And so this visual that downloaded through, really, it even became like the basis and the outline for the entire story that I told, like in this first book. And that is that we each have this inner light, and this inner light shines like the sun. And when we think of the sun is burning bright, forever burning bright. It is, a fire that is cleansing, that is warming, that is loving. And even in the darkness of the night, where we can't see the sun, it is still there keeping us warm. Like if the sun was suddenly gone, like when it was nighttime, we would literally freeze to death. Like the sun is there keeping us warm, even in the darkness, even when we can't see it. And even on cloudy days where we can't see the sun, but we know it's behind the clouds, like the sun is still there. And often it finds a way to shine through, like those little breaks in the clouds where the sun shines through. Even on those foggy days, the sun is still there. The light of the sun is always there, is unchanging, is always bright. And even when our experiences and our momentary environments that we're in change our perspective of how much sun is there, that doesn't change where the sun is or how brightly it is shining. And this is the same for when we think about like the sun within our heart. Like that light is always shining, that inner light within us is always shining, and the essence of that light is love. And I always visualize like this inner light within our heart space, just like emanating out, radiating out. And sometimes there are some clouds around it that may float by on their own, or that may create like some shadows for a little longer. And we all have shadows that we need to move through and experience to move through the full storyline of our own evolution and of where we are moving to in life and the full adventure of the life that we get to live. In the Gene Keys, the SQ sphere is at the heart of our profile, and it is the imprint of Venus astrologically, our design or unconscious imprint of Venus. So this imprint has really deep roots, like to the core of our love, like to the core of our heart, to the heart of our being. And this SQ it's the heart of our profile, and it's also the heart of the Venus sequence, which is a journey into deep love and into our full emotional depth. And the love that we have imprinted here is always wanting to shine through our lives. And this is like a pure, innocent, like innocent and pure love that is always wanting to shine through. That, like our SQ is one of the only places, or is the only place within our Gene Keys profile where the shadow is just simply like the absence of love, as opposed to like a full shadow storyline that we need to embrace in different ways. Like I can explain that in more depth, like in a different space, but like we don't really have a shadow to our pure love. So we don't experience like the full storyline of the Gene Key in our SQ in a way that we do for our other Gene Keys, like in other spheres or in other realms of our life. The love that we have imprinted here is the love that's wanting to shine through our lives and through the fog of our shadows created by the Gene Keys in our IQ and our EQ. And these are within our Venus sequence. Like we unravel the shadows of those places in the IQ and EQ first, so that we can get to the heart, so we can get to the SQ. We want to unravel the coils that have been put around our heart, around our SQ, so that more love can shine through our body, so that more love can emanate from us. And when we look at the question of like, what is the essence of love shining through all of our emotional and our mental shadows, it's the city of our SQ. The city of the SQ that we have is our personal essence of love. And our SQ sphere in the Gene Keys is our spiritual quotient, or our spiritual intelligence. And our spiritual intelligence is really about like our ability to remain connected to our heart and to remain spiritually connected to the heart of life. And exploring this sphere can be a really vulnerable place, especially when we go straight there, like if we're drawn straight there, as opposed to moving through the whole Venus sequence of like moving through the IQ, EQ, and even like the activation sequence before that. But this sphere is a vulnerable place because we're returning back to this age of complete innocence, this age where we were completely like molded by the environments we were in and the people we were around, while we were just this pure expression of love, which is like the city of whatever our face of love is that we have. So the SQ is the imprinting period from birth to 7 years old. And if you think about if you have any children in your life, thinking about kids from 0 to 7 years old, they have this really beautiful innocent love. And when we think about the inner child that is still within ourselves, like our past consciousness, all our past consciousnesses, like from all our developmental cycles, are still within us. And our inner child is a place of innocence within ourselves. And this is such a special and beautiful place within us because, we don't have a lot of mental memory from 0 to 7 years old. It's likely that we have some memory, but it won't be as strong as from other periods throughout our life. Like most people don't remember much of their first few years of life, if anything. Like we don't have that memory because it's like the deepest, most innocent and pure place within us that it cannot be distorted by the mind. But that memory is within our body, like that memory of love or that memory of whatever we experienced in those first 7 years of life is very deeply embodied within us. And it's like within this imprinting period that we really shape like our sense of self that is embodied within our physical body, that cannot be distorted by the mind. It's in the subconscious mind because it's in the body. The story of your SQ Gene Key is the story of the quality of love that you bring into the world. And this is that place of like returning to the innocence of your inner child and the innocence of wanting to love purely, of unconditional love and universal love. And it's really beautiful that in the Venus sequence, or like in the golden path of the gene keys, it's the pathway of love that leads us into this sphere of the EQ. So we go from of the SQ, we go from the EQ down the pathway of love into the SQ. And this can also be where a lot of pain within our body can be healed, because we're returning to the love that is in our heart. And especially if we didn't receive the love that we yearned for as children, coming back to this quality of love within our SQ as adults is such a healing and heart opening experience, returning home to love and just prompting yourself with these really beautiful questions of like, can you love with an open heart when you are in your shadows, when you are facing challenges, when you feel as though you are suffering? Can you return non-love with love? Can you love unconditionally? Can you give that innocent childlike love where it doesn't matter what anyone has done or the impact that they're having on you? Can you return non-love with love? So I want to take a little moment here to explore the lines of the SQ. So if you look in your SQ sphere, you'll see you have a number, which is the gene key, a decimal point, and then another number between 1 and 6. And that second number after the decimal point is your line number, which is like the coloring to the story of the gene key that you have. It gives extra nuance and context and a setting for what you have within the gene key. When we look at the lines of the SQ, this gives like 6 different flavors or 6 different nuances to how we get back home, how we get home to love, and your version of love that your heart yearns to come home to. And also like the version of love that your child self between like birth to 7 years old yearn to receive. And if you received the flavor of love like of your line, then you will have a very different experience in your adulthood to how you experience love to if you did not receive what is in your line in this SQ. And because this is like a design imprint, an unconscious imprint, we are always unconsciously seeking this kind of love. And the love that we seek in the world does really shape our journey throughout all our life, through all facets of love. And it can be such a like unconsciously ingrained thing so I really invite you to like sit with how this feels in your body and how this may be like a major theme that has played out in your life, and reflect on like how this played out in your childhood as well and how that influenced you going forward into adulthood. So for the first line in your SQ, this is about like seeking certainty, seeking safety, and a strong like sense of security and foundation is really important to the first line in terms of how they seek love. Like they want to feel safe and they want to feel certain in their safety and security. And as a first line like enters into the world, they have almost like this strong sense that like something is missing. Like they don't have that pure safety of being in the womb anymore, being like one with source. It's like there's this sense that they are in danger to an extent. And as humans, like we always have that. And this first line senses that very deeply. And this is like this cellular uncertainty that is in their body. So they always are led to these like existential questions of like, why am I here? What am I? Who am I? And the love that they are seeking is this inner security and this sense of certainty of those questions within themselves. And how they receive that in their childhood is really around like the sense of security and safety that is set like in their home life. And that will be like a journey that plays out into your adulthood, like wanting that safety and wanting that security and wanting the foundational elements of all of that throughout your life. And that is how you can really like heal your heart in love, by really giving yourself that, but knowing that it's found within yourself and that nothing external can ever make you feel fully certain or fully safe. It's like finding that love of certainty within yourself. The second line is seeking freedom. Like your home is your freedom, and freedom within yourself. Again, like all of these, like what you're seeking, sometimes we're drawn on journeys to find it externally, but you will always find what you're seeking within yourself and within your heart, because the love is only within your heart. So this second line is seeking freedom. And with this second line, like the gift and the city that you have in your SQ will give you a sense of like the flavor of freedom that you are yearning to feel. For a third line, this is all about seeking pleasure. And this is like the pleasure of life, the pleasure of adventure, the pleasure of like fully living and fully experiencing life through your senses and all facets of life. It's like this childlike spirit to get to explore, to get to like have these adventures. So this third line, like the love that they are yearning for, like, is pleasure, like to fully enjoy life. And this third line can carry this really like vulnerable energy when it comes to commitment and staying in the same place for a long time, for any amount of time, because like this sense of wanting to experience the pleasure and the adventure of life can send you on like so many like external changes again and again and again. But when you can find that adventure and that pleasure like within your own heart and find the love of that, then it gives you this more like grounded physical sense of being able to commit to whatever it is that is calling your commitment in life. The fourth line is about seeking belonging. You're seeking home through your community. So your fourth line in the SQ is always seeking this place where they feel like they belong, and feeling like they belong is the feeling of love to the fourth line here. And again, like this is a sense of belonging from within. But if you imagine like that sense of belonging being externalized, that can send you into so many communities, so many different places. So fourth lines here are often really beautiful, like networkers that have a lot of connections, a lot of friends, a big community around them. And that sense of love that you're yearning for is that sense of belonging within yourself, but it is so linked and connected to your sense of belonging in community as well. Our fifth line here is about seeking mentoring. And people that have a fifth line in their SQ hold a lot of power to be a leader of love in the world. And so when you have this fifth line in your SQ, as a child, you seek mentors to model this to you. You seek mentors that are leaders of love. And, you know, they don't need to be leaders in a traditional sense, like mothers are leaders of like the love in a home, as our fathers and other guardians. So if you have a fifth line in your SQ, like the mentors you have from like birth to 7 years old really form and influence like how you lead and how you mentor others throughout your life. And the integrity of the people you are modeling yourself on for these fifth lines are really important. And if you have role models and mentoring that have that strong integrity and that model like giving love in the name of service with you, you will become a really strong mentor to other people in your adulthood to share your love and wisdom with. But if you have mentors, if you receive mentoring that is a distorted expression of love, then your journey will likely be like a journey of being humbled by life until you return to the love within your own heart to be a mentor that gives love freely and that shares love and wisdom freely. So if you have a fifth line, like really think about who are your mentors early in life. And for the sixth line is all about like seeking patience. Patience is the love that they are seeking that feels like home to them. And as a child, it's about like seeking that patience from the people around you, because people that have a sixth line in their SQ really like carry the collective future, the vision for a collective future in their hearts. Like, and they need this really deep, they have a really deep need for space, for time, for patience from others to develop in their own timing, to do things in their own timing, to be themselves, like in their own timing. And sometimes, we can really rush kids to develop at, an acceptable pace. And that can really be disruptive to a sixth line. So they crave this patience from others. And again, like when they find that patience within their own heart is when they can return home to the love within themselves. So that is a little insight to the 6 lines of the SQ. And with any lines in our profile, like we have exposure and connection to all the lines. So you may relate to many of them. You may relate more to the line that is in your SQ, but you may relate more to another one. So really just like play with all of the 6 lines and see what you connect with, what resonates, what you may see in other people. And sometimes it can be really interesting to contemplate the line like you wish you had, or that you thought, oh, that'd be so much better to have that line, for example, and think about the people that you see that line in. And that can just be really interesting to contemplate, to open some things up. And when we look at these lines of the SQ, but also the Jing key that we have in our SQ, and this idea of needing to heal our heart as adults, it inevitably brings up these questions of, does every childhood experience this wounding, this unresolved emotion or trauma to an extent? Can we avoid being traumatized as children? Like, is there anything our parents or the adults and the other people around us could have done to protect us from needing to heal as we come into adulthood? And there is so many different nuances and facets to this question. Like, there is the understanding that our parents and the people around us did the best that they could at the time. There's also, acknowledging where they may have failed us to an extent. But when it comes to revisiting this, like as an adult, like in this time that we are revisiting it, it's about like taking like the step in our story that we want to take, regardless of what other people has done. And ultimately, like we all carry our own slice of the sacred wound, of the collective karma. We are all born with an imprint of shadows that are part of our storyline of evolution. And even if we had the most perfect parents in the world, we would still have our slice of the sacred wound. We would still have our shadows to experience. So it's an interesting question to ponder, but it's one to come to a place of acceptance within yourself, that it's this, like what happened in your childhood is what happened, and what do you want to do with that now? Like what influence is that going to have on the storyline of your evolution that you're moving into now? And can you allow your heart to be open, even though whatever happened in your childhood? And that can take different approaches and different forms of contemplation and support in different ways, but know that there is always the essence of love that is within your heart, and that is always wanting to shine through, and it will shine through in different ways, through the choices you make, through the experiences that you had no choice in, and through the life that you choose to live moving forward. So diving into your SQ is really about like resting within the depths of the ocean. And if you think of like the ocean as your entire inner being, it's like just letting the waves carry you, but then going beneath the waves to a place that is more stable, like beneath the surface, within the depths, the waters of your entire soul, and moving through like this SQ within the path of the Gene Keys is really about retrieving the essence of your love that you lost a little of as a child through the wounding and the experiences that you had and the pain that you went through that made you close your heart a little more and lose some of the shine, but it was never really lost. It's always been there. It's always been there waiting for you to look at it, to open it from the box or the treasure chest that you hid it in to keep yourself safe. And as you experience or as you move through your whole Venus sequence, you get much more like deeper insight into the ways that your shadows kept you safe from pain, like in the SQ, but also in the IQ, EQ, in the whole Venus sequence. So part of your journey in life, a big part, probably the biggest part of your journey in this human life, like is this like feeling into the yearning of your heart. And above all, the heart yearns for home, to come home. The heart wants to come home, and home is love, the feeling of love. And when we look at nature, like nothing that is natural within the universe is straight or linear or like perfect, perpendicular, parallel, angled. Like there are spirals and like that sacred geometry within all that is natural within the universe. And because nothing is straight and linear, it gives us this sense, like this deeply unconscious sense that something is slightly off, something is slightly wrong. And it's kind of like this like push that pushes us to evolve at a very primal subconscious level. And there's this magical number of 88, which is significant in many ways. But in nature, everything tends to be like this 88-degree angle instead of a perfect like 90-degree angle. And our design imprint is 88 degrees of the sun to where we are born. So that imprint is around like 88 days before we are born for our unconscious imprint. And physically, our heart is slightly to the left, whereas our energetic heart is directly in the center of our chest. So we have this sense that it's like something is slightly off. We have it physically, metaphysically, energetically, and in all the ways. And this really drives like this sense of searching, because our heart is searching for home. Our heart is yearning to come home. And when that is like a deep internal yearning. But often when we learn to live our life through our mind, we externalize that search, and we can spend our whole life like searching externally for that feeling of home. And the gene key that you have here and the line number that you have here likely give you really deep insights to what you have been searching for. And for me personally, like I have the 5th line in my SQ, and so much, like when I look back on so much of my life, like I've had so many different experiences, and a lot of it has been like seeking a strong mentor, seeking someone to like take me under their wing and just like accept me fully and guide me forward in life. And it's so interesting when I think about how that has played out through schooling, like with my relationship, the dynamic of the relationship I had with my teachers, even in my professional life and even within my family and outside of that as well. And then when I look at it, I have the 22nd gene key here. And, you know, like that has the city of grace. And the way that grace has always been always has been like shining through and warming those experiences in a way. So your heart, the home your heart yearns for is a feeling. And that feeling is love. And the feeling of love can only be found in your heart. So your SQ, this is another facet of the SQ within the gene keys, is that your SQ governs your mythology, your story arc, your like archetypes in life that you embrace and embody and like follow the stories of. And this is about like your unconscious seeking to return home takes on a story arc, takes on its own mythology. And in your journey home, you can embrace like the mundane, the mythical, the madness, the all of it within your own mythology. So I want you to really think of like, see your life as a story and take on that main character energy to really live your full story. Your home is in your heart, and when you feel love, you are home. And your shadows are sacred parts of your story, are sacred parts of your mythology that carry the seeds of your suffering, of your struggles. And all of this is for you to connect more to love with the depths of your gifts, of your creativity, of your genius, of who you are in your personal story of evolution and in the collective story of evolution as well. I have a little quote that I want to read from. This is from the Venus Sequence course by the Gene Keys. And it says, the Gene Keys are not an easy fix system that tell you what to do. They are a deep, mythic tapestry of insight, and the golden path puts the full responsibility of awakening back onto you where it belongs. And I think that is such a beautiful, beautiful quote that sums up a lot of the magic within the Gene Keys, that it is such a beautiful tapestry of so much insight and revelation, but it's designed to activate your own wisdom and your own story arc and your own mythology and your own awakening, and taking that for yourself, taking responsibility for that for yourself, sends you on an even more mythical path than following a predetermined map could ever. So before we go into some specific Gene Keys and then the guided meditation, I just want to spend a small moment, a couple of minutes, sharing some of the ways that you can work with me as your Gene Keys guide. So the first thing I want to talk about is to go through the depths of the Venus sequence, because this SQ sphere is in the Venus sequence. It's the heart of the profile, heart of the Venus sequence. So towards the end of the year, in a few months, the Gene Keys, like the organization of the Gene Keys, will be running a virtual retreat that will go for 6 months, diving in to the Venus sequence. And this will be such a beautiful, heart-opening, expansive experience in a really like beautiful, spacious way that holds a lot of depth, a lot of connection, and so much amplification. Like, you will move through this journey with thousands of people across the world at the same time. So and it will be a very accessible investment as well. So for anyone that joins this Venus virtual retreat through my affiliate link that I will share, like once all the details have been announced, you will get to join like everything that the Gene Keys is offering, which will be next level and amazing. And I will also be holding space for a more intimate group to have more intimate spaces for connection throughout that 6-month experience. And I'll share the exact details as we get closer to it and as the Gene Keys releases those details. But just having that more like, so in the virtual retreats, you do get to be part of community calls and breakout rooms. But I feel like the extra intimacy joining through me will be that you have like consistent intimacy, like a small group of people that go through the experience fully with you. So I'll share more details on that later. But that will be such a beautiful experience if you feel called to move through the Venus sequence in a very like supported but also spacious way that really activates a lot of your inner wisdom in a very, very sacred way. So the second option is to take an activation sequence deep dive with me. So in the golden path of the Gene Keys is made up of 3 sequences: the activation, the Venus, and the Pearl. And the activation is the starting point, is the first sequence that grounds your physical core stability, that activates your genius, your creativity, and your 4 prime gifts into the world, along with those gifts, like entire storylines. So to take an activation sequence deep dive with me, you receive a very in-depth audio. It will likely go like 40 to 50 minutes of me diving into the storyline of those prime 4 gifts and weaving in like the full tapestry of all the elements within your sequence. So incorporating the pathways, the lines, all of that. Plus you get 1 week of fully open Voxer support, so unlimited voice and text messages for all the questions and guidance and all of that that come up after you listen to your audio. And I really do recommend that you do this Venus sequence before that you do the activation sequence before you do the Venus sequence. So if you want to be part of that Venus retreat, I really recommend that you dive into the activation sequence, whether it's with me or through another means, before you enter that Venus retreat. But in saying that, like, listen to your intuition. All entries are sacred entryways into the path. But I do recommend like having that physical grounding and having that core stability is so important before going into full emotional depth. And the other option is that we can take a dive through your entire profile, all 3 sequences, all 11 spheres. And we can do this in a very like intense, potent way or in a very spacious way. If you're interested in any of those, reach out to me. You can find me at by Rachel White on Instagram, or reach out however we've been chatting, if we've been chatting already, and we can talk about the next steps you can take with me as your Gene Keys guide. Okay, so there's 3 Gene Keys that I just want to share a little musing on before we go into the meditation. And this is for some of the beautiful souls that messaged me that are likely going to be listening to the replay. And some of you may have these Gene Keys in common with them as well in your SQ. So the first one is the 29th Gene Key with a 3rd line. So when we look at this 29th Gene Key, it has the gift of commitment and the city of devotion. And when we look at devotion as the essence of love, especially with a 3rd line of like seeking pleasure, I think that paints this like such a beautiful picture in the essence of love that is shining through someone that has this in their profile. And like devotion as love is so beautiful. And when we think about the city of devotion, it's about like completely devoting yourself to someone or to something. And you can devote yourself to life, to another person, to a cause, to anything, like to the present moment. Devotion is of like giving yourself fully to something. And, you know, the manifestation of commitment that comes through like as a gift is about like 100% committing, and every true commitment is like to your heart in the present moment. And when we look at like having the 3rd line here of seeking pleasure, like seeking the full experience of life, like your devotion to that pleasure will take you on such a beautiful adventure. And it's so interesting that it's like the 3rd line, it's like commitment is often the challenge, fully committing because you're called to adventure so often. But when you come into like the commitment to your heart and to love and being devoted to that, that is what like brings you home to the pleasure of living, to that love of fully living, of embracing life. That is a very little musing, a small insight. There is so much depth to the 3rd line, to the 29th Gene Key. And so I hope anyone that has that in their profile got a little musing, a little insight to take away. So the next one is the 51st Gene Key. And again, this has a 3rd line. So the 51st Gene Key has a gift of initiative and the city of awakening. And this Gene Key is I find this Gene Key like really interesting and really beautiful, that it's like the gift of initiative is really about like the spirit of competition in high service to others. And when you move from like this gift into the city, from initiative into awakening, it's really about like being so much of yourself, like just like this energy of just being so much of yourself. And I think about the person that comes to mind when I think of the 51st Gene Key is like Novak Djokovic, where it's like, and any like really competitive like tennis player or like competitive sports person that's like not in a team, like they're a solo sports person. So like I think of tennis often for that. Whereas like they just like so much of themselves that they are so competitive and they just like naturally are so good like in the competition, in the setting that they are in. And you know that can definitely be a journey from the shadow to the gift, but in their highest expression, like they bring this beautiful competitive spirit into the world that is often of service to themselves but is of service to so many others as well. And with this 51st Gene Key and this awakening city, like like if you think of awakening is love, it's like you bring love into the world by being the first person to do something. And when you're the first person to do something, it creates like this tidal wave of permission for other people to do it too. And this like awakening and initiative is all about like following your creative initiative, your creative interpretations, being the first person to do things through that initiative, through that interpretation. And in that sense, like you become awake because you're so much of yourself that it couldn't help but awaken you, and you awaken others in that process as well. And again, when we look at this, having a third line, like seeking pleasure, wanting to come home through pleasure, like that competitive spirit brings you pleasure. But it's about like, if you think of that, can be so many different expressions, and that's why it's such an inner journey, because being competitive and finding pleasure and being competitive can be a very external journey where you just want to like beat everyone else, but it can also be a very like internal journey where it's like your pleasure from being competitive is just so fulfilling within yourself that it doesn't actually matter if you win or lose or like what the external results are. Like you're just paving the way to be awake in the way that is just completely unique and completely yourself. And then the final Gene Key is the 41st Gene Key with a fifth line. I find this really a really beautiful pairing as well. So the 41st Gene Key has the gift of anticipation and the city of emanation. I love this city of emanation. I have this Gene Key in my radiance. But this having this city of emanation, like emanation is about, it's the beginning and the end of all stories. It's like the source energy that everything emanates from. And this is such a beautiful energy to have in your heart, because it is the like the city of emanation is about the story of coming home. It's like the full circle of like the beginning and the end is the same thing. Like love is the same in the beginning and the end of the story. And this manifests as the gift of anticipation that connects us like to be able to anticipate the storyline that we are living and like where it started from, and mostly like where we are going and where it ends, because it's like it's like this is the emanation, and if we're here, we're anticipating everything coming because that emanation is like pulling us in, and we're anticipating the storyline because we're so deeply connected to it. And this like 41st Gene Key, especially the gift of anticipation, is like really linked to leadership, anticipating the future, and then using that anticipation like in the service of others. And you know, love through emanation, like sharing that emanation, like sharing the source of our stories with others, like is such a beautiful expression of love. And when we look at this, like having the fifth line, like having that powerful projection of love where you are meant to be a mentor of love and wisdom and like have those leadership qualities, like it is such a beautiful pairing to have here, to be a mentor, to share your wisdom, to share like your connection to emanation, to anticipation. Again, so much depth there, but I hope that gives you a little insight if you have that within your profile. Okay, so now we're going to go into our guided meditation, our guided inner journey. So I invite you just to take a moment. You can sit up with a tall spine, or you may like to lay down if that feels better for you. We're just taking a little moment to ground your body, to deepen your breath. You may like to place a hand on your heart. So just taking a little moment to breathe in through the nose, filling the belly and then the chest, letting your heart and your lungs expand. And then a slow exhale coming in from the belly and then the chest. Keep your shoulders soft down and open. Let your chest feel open. Now, with every exhale, just letting the body rest a little deeper, become a little more soft, a little more in the moment. Now, I want you to visualize your consciousness moving through your subtle bodies, moving through your mental body, your emotional body, and moving through any fog that those bodies may be conjuring around them. The fog, the clouds created by the shadows, you're moving through them because you're being drawn in to your heart. You're being drawn home. You're being drawn into the essence of your own love. And as you move through your full auric field, you come into your body, into your heart space. And when you arrive in your heart space, you find yourself in the depths of your inner waters, the water of your soul, your inner ocean. You're beneath the surface, beneath the waves, the depths of the ocean. And as you're at the ocean, you see an emanation of light, of love, emerging from even deeper down. And you keep traveling to come down to this love, to come down to this light. And just observe and notice how you feel, what you see, what you're experiencing within the depths of this ocean. There's no right or wrong here. You can let your experience be what it is. And as you're traveling through the depths of this inner ocean, you'll arrive at a point where you see a treasure chest. And then you may need to dig this treasure chest out from somewhere. It may be in some sea plants. You may arrive at the ground and you may have to dig it out from the sand. Just retrieve this treasure chest, wherever it may be within the depths of this ocean. And as you hold the treasure chest, you can't get it open. You realize that it's locked, that it's shut, but you sense that it's hiding something important, that it's keeping it safe. And you may be drawn to search for the key, to look for the key outside of yourself. But know that the key is within you, and it's been there all along. So you reach into your heart, and there the key is. And this key is made of your essence of love. And when you're ready, you can use the key to open your treasure chest, to find what's inside. So you turn the key, you open the treasure chest, and something may immediately appear, or you may need to reach in to this treasure chest to see what's there. It may be a book with writing in it. It may be something lost from your childhood or something you thought you lost. What is in this treasure chest within yourself? And I want you to let go of any mental thoughts around it and feel your connection to it. Feel where it came from. Feel its essence. Feel its meaning in your body. And whatever is in this treasure chest, it has a message for you. And this may be something that needs to percolate and integrate into your body over a little space and time, or it may immediately make perfect sense to you. Just keep breathing here with your treasure. Take a little moment to bring your treasure that you found with you as you swim back up to the surface of this ocean and you come back into your physical body. If they're not already, place your hands over your heart. Breathe deeply. Notice how your belly and your chest move as you breathe. When you're ready, you can really gently open your eyes. And just take a little moment to fully come back into the space you're in. Note down anything that you want to remember from that experience. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you have enjoyed this transmission and this meditation. If there's any questions you have or anything you want to share, please reach out. I would love to hear from you. And have a beautiful day full of love.